everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today's topic is hitting a creative wall. What we can do to get around it, and basically what causes it. My name is Juan Londoño, for those of you that don't know me, and we are now getting started. By the way, this video and this topic applies to more than one field, not just photography. So whether you're working in construction, if you're an artist, if you're an engineer, whatever, stick around because it really is a topic that affects us all. If this has happened to you, if you have at one point or another in your photographic career or photographic journey hit a creative wall, let me tell you, you're not alone. I lived in Florida for 5 years, and for some reason when I moved from New York City to Florida, I don't know what happened. I basically put my camera away. I continued to buy things for my camera, which is interesting. And I continued to experiment here and there, but I wasn't really using my camera, and I don't know why. Now, back then I was shooting film, but that's not an excuse. I mean, I used my camera. When I was living in New York City, I shot almost every weekend. I'd go into the city and photograph all kinds of cool things. So what happened in Florida, it was a combination of learning the area. At first, I put the camera away because I figured, let me learn the area. Then I got busy with work and school. I was doing my master's degree. And, I don't know, it just kind of life took over. And for about 5 years, I took it out. I did a friend's wedding. It came out very pretty. I did some other things. I shot a concert, things like that. But for the most part, the camera was put away until I moved to Georgia, to the Atlanta area. And then I started to get into fashion and, runway shows, catwalks. And my camera came out. I got a digital camera, made life a little easier. And then all of a sudden I started getting creative again. So it happens to everyone. I tell you that little story just so you know that if this is happening to you or has happened to you, you are not alone. I like to begin with 8 things that I think might help cause a creative block. So let's start with number 1. Number 1 is technical skills. This is one that we might not even know is a problem. It might creep up on us and catch us off guard. Number 2 is a bad critique. All it takes is one bad critique to send us into a negative downward spiral, especially when it comes from somebody that we care about, somebody that we respect, right? That we think of highly. They look at our work, and if they squash, your photography, it can hurt, right? I mean, let's be honest. Number 3 is basically equipment. Now, I think of 3 categories when I think of equipment. One is damaged equipment. I mean, basically, it's just not working right. Another one is old equipment. We're just tired of using the same stuff, or maybe it's just kind of not looking right anymore, kind of looking grungy. And then the third one there is basically we just want to switch brands, I think all photographers are constantly looking around, and now camera companies are making some big jumps in technology. Lately Canon, Sony, they're jumping ahead of many of the other brands. So many of the people that have other brands are starting to go, ooh, wow, maybe I should buy that. So if you're, just your eye is on a particular brand and it's been on that brand for, going on a year and it's itching, that might kind of dent your creativity because we start believing that the equipment we have is not good enough. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Number 4 is just not enough time. We can't consistently find 15, 20, 30 minutes a day, whether it's in the morning or in the evening, whenever. Consistency is important. And we just can't find it consistently. And when we take odd jobs where our schedule is shifting, we lose that creativity, Maybe we're tired. Maybe we're just not used to hopping around and having, 20 minutes one morning, and then maybe the next evening having 20 minutes, and then the following morning another 15 minutes. And, we're going to that. Okay, that's another topic. And then there's fear. This is a tricky one because it kind of varies for all of us, right? We all have different fears. One fear is the fear of failure. I mean, really, it's the fear of failing, of not doing well. Another fear is the fear of not meeting expectations. Now, if we're worried about not meeting our own expectations, then we're back to number 1. That's basically a fear. But if we're kind of worried about not meeting somebody else's expectations, yeah, it is kind of a fear, but it gets into a different category now, right? Because you're letting something on the outside influence you. And now with social media, there's a new fear. Can you believe that? Another freaking fear that we have to worry about. It's the fear of not getting likes or being followed. Is that really something to worry about? Well, if you're trying to build up, a channel, you're trying to build up a following, yeah, it's something that's real nowadays anyway, right? Number 6 is very interesting, and it has to do with location. So what do I mean by location? Well, the first thing is dull location. We may be living in an area that we just consider a dull place. There's no other way around that, right? Maybe we want to be closer to a city and we live in a little town that doesn't have much to photograph, that we think doesn't have much to photograph, because many times there's a lot more there than we realize. Maybe it's just the same freaking location day after day. We don't get out. We're not traveling. You can be in the coolest place in the world, but if you've been there for 10 years and you're not moving around, maybe you start to lose some creativity. Now, that's just specifically talking about location, because I can live in a location, even a small little town, and I can start doing smoke photography, water droplet photography, close-up of flowers, flower photography. There's portraits. There's all kinds of cool things that we can take up, abstract photography, right? But if we're just talking about right now location, yeah, if we're not moving around, then the same old location gets dull. And the third subcategory to number 6 is basically, it's not the location we want. We might be in a cool city like New York or Hong Kong, Singapore. I mean, there are so many places, but if that is not where you want to be, if you keep thinking of a freaking beach and you just want to, be on a beach for 5 days and photograph sunrises and sunsets and whatever you want to do, then yeah, your creativity is going to get hampered a little bit, right? Number 7 is just lack of ideas. Ideas are not coming to you. And it can be, any of the 6 previous sections we talked about, right? Why ideas are not coming to you. Or it might be something else. I jotted a few of them down. And so this is what it looks like, right? There is, life. I mean, it happens, right? Life. You're worried about issues. I mean, we all have issues. Some of us are born with issues. There's marriage. I mean, that, takes a toll on some people. There's school, if you're heavily into school. There's so much more. And all of these are kind of external, right? But they bother us. They weigh down on us, right? We let them affect us. And I'm going to mention number 8. It's kind of unique. And I call it bad memories, right? I knew somebody once that had pretty cool camera gear. And I didn't understand why they didn't use it. It turns out that the camera gear wasn't originally theirs. It belonged to their father. And when I started asking questions, right? Don't you like photography? Oh yeah, I love photography. I think it's beautiful. And my dad was really good. But there was a sore point there. And I don't know if it was a little bit of, I'm worried I won't be as good as my dad was. Or maybe it was more of, this was really passionate to him. And I lost him at an early age. And it kind of hurts me to think about it. And they kind of just put it aside. It's real. Those are the crappy things in life that affect us, right? So I wanted to put it out there. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It's just bad memories. So now, my friends, we have reached a middle point in the video, kind of. The next part, the second part, is we're going to talk about each one of those and how to overcome them. But between then is water. Pause the freaking video. Go get yourself some water. We have at least another 15 minutes to go. I'm going to try to speak quickly. I'm going to try to get through these. But I want you to be hydrated, healthy, happy, all those cool things that are going to keep us going into the future of video topics, okay? Pause it. Go get your stuff. Overcoming issue number 1. Technical skills. Poor technical skills, right? One of the problems in all of the fields, everything in life, is that many of us, sometimes probably close to all of us, want to do the cool advanced stuff. We've talked about this before, and we kind of leave the basics behind, right? Some of those cool topics are HDR, right? High dynamic range, lighting, posing, all these cool things that we're just dying to get into because we see other photographers doing it and they do it well. And we neglect the principles of photography. The truth is, we cannot, no matter how much you want it, you cannot build a concrete and steel structure like a building on a plastic foundation, right? We know that, right? But if we know that, then why don't we freaking accept that we can't build a strong, powerful, solid photographic career on a crappy foundation with no basics? We somehow don't seem to accept that, yet the thing with the building and the steel and the plastic, we totally get. So if you want a solid photography experience, whether it's hobby or business, you're going to need a solid foundation. And what do I mean by a solid foundation, right? Well, I jotted these down. So understanding photography principles, understanding your camera and all of its features, understanding lenses. I have videos on most of these topics, right? Understanding how light works and how to manipulate it. How do you get a point source light? How do you get a broad light that softens the shadows? Very important topic. Understanding the human form, right? Which side of a face looks better? How to pose a person so their double chin doesn't show, right? Do they look up? Do they look down? Where do you put that light? Those are things that you can practice with family members, but it's an important topic to understand. Understanding color. How to use color to your advantage, or no color. When do you need to not use color? Very important. Understanding your software is important because it's your editing suite, and that's how you're going to get your product to your clients, to your customers, or to yourself if if it's a hobby. And last but not least, if you're going to do exhibits, if you're going to show your stuff even around your own home, how to work your printer, understanding your printer. One of the things about poor technical skills, I mentioned before, it kind of creeps up on us, right? So we're really good with our camera and we're really good with our editing suite of software, right? And we do it for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, maybe even close to 10 years. And one day we wake up and we realize the world has moved on. Cameras are different. Oh my gosh, they went from film to digital. And some people refused to get a digital camera back in the day. And the world kept moving forward, and eventually they had to, right? Now mirrorless cameras are coming out. Many people are saying, I won't get rid of my DSLR. I love my DSLR. I love the way it feels in my hand. It's a big, meaty camera. But Canon, for example, with the R5, the R6, now the R3, and hopefully the R1 to come out, they're beefier cameras, right? They're starting because they have more crap in them anyway, so they need to be big, and they need to have ways of not heating up, so they have maybe fans and just more space inside, right? So cameras are getting comfortable again to hold because they got a little small there for a while. And sometimes people don't switch for those reasons, but technology has a way of moving quickly, so you need to stay on top of it if it's your field. If photography is your field, then we as photographers, we need to read up on it. We need to play with different cameras. The cool thing is you can even rent a camera. You can go to your local, camera place. In many cities, they rent cameras and rent lenses. And the cool thing about software now, if you're getting Photoshop or anything that you want to get that you sign up for and you pay like a monthly service, is they're constantly updating it. So when you log in every time to use it, it's already the updated version. So you're kind of keeping up with the latest. Not like before where you would buy Photoshop and then you couldn't afford an update for like 5 years. And then when you got the update, it totally changed. It was totally different. And you're like, oh no, I got to learn this freaking thing again. That doesn't happen so much anymore. Even with things like, some of the free packages out there, right? They keep updating them all the time. And when you use them, you're just kind of there. So study these things that we talked about, the lenses, the light, check them off, right? Your list, write them all down, check them off, and practice them. Learn them however the heck you like, watching videos, reading, whatever, listening to audiobooks, whatever turns you on. But the point is to become consistently decent, good. so that, you can move on to other topics, like more advanced topics. Number 2 was negative criticism. How do we overcome negative criticism? Well, there's 2 types of people that are going to receive criticism. And it's probably not what you're thinking. Let me tell you. So if photography is a hobby for you, this topic should be a non-issue. If you're doing this for yourself, what people say about your work and about your photography and what it looks like, irrelevant. La 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 la. Don't give a crap, because I'm doing it for me. And that's how you should feel about it. You're doing it for yourself, for your entertainment, for your pleasure. Who gives a crap what they want you to do or not do? It doesn't matter. Get better at your own pace. Or you know what? Don't even get better at all. If you're happy with what you're doing and you feel like you don't want to learn anything else for the next year, you just want to shoot the same little freaking thing you're shooting because it makes you happy and it relaxes you, do that. Don't let other people's opinions and comments bother you. If you're making money off your photography, or you're planning to, then you might want to listen to, some people's feedback, but you want to be careful about who you take advice from. Not all advice is good. You know this, right? We've been dealt advice for many different reasons, and not all advice is good. And let me tell you something, even the best advice in the freaking world sometimes doesn't suit us. Like if I'm a portrait photographer and I go out with my friends and I shoot some landscapes and I come back and some big photographer or somebody in my family that's been shooting for 30 years looks at my pictures and say, your landscapes aren't really, popping out, and I don't really see the dimension in them, and the composition's a little off. I'm just going to go la 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 while they're speaking, right? In my head, of course, not out loud. But because I just did that for fun, Look at my portrait photography and tell me what that's doing, and I might want to listen to that. But if people are, criticizing something that I'm just doing for fun, like I said before, let it go in one ear and out the other. Or better yet, put a steel plate up so bing, it just bounces off your head. It's okay to ask for criticism. I think it's very important. Just know who you're asking, right? Ask people that are level-headed and that are knowledgeable. Those 2 things are important, okay? You can find somebody that's knowledgeable and so passionate about certain things that they're going to be, not passionate about others, and then they're going to criticize things incorrectly. You want to find somebody that's level-headed and that's very knowledgeable. Let me tell you, when I first started expanding my nude black and white collection, right, and I was getting ready to do my first exhibit, I went around asking people with their photo book in hand what they thought of the pictures in the book. And I gave them some stickies. And I said, I want you to put some stickies up, just stick them to the picture. Let me know which picture absolutely you love. And which picture you feel doesn't belong in that book. If you love a couple, it's okay, mark a couple. And if you really dislike a couple, it's okay to do that too. And I gave them different colors, right? And green was the ones they absolutely loved. And red was the one, the pictures, those were the pictures they didn't want in the book. They felt those didn't belong there. Well, everybody had a different opinion, right? There was not one picture that was getting all the reds or all the greens. But one thing drew my attention. One of the people that looked at the book, most people, I'll be honest with you, I'm not just saying this, most people didn't have a red sticky to put on the pictures because the ones they showed were my favorite. I had already done my own mental criticism, so I had already picked the stuff that had great composition and made me feel something. So they were doing the same thing, right? They were looking at them and saying, wow, composition's beautiful. I'm getting a lot of emotion from this picture. So luckily for me, I didn't get any red stickies until this one person came along and gave me a couple of green stickies like everybody else, and all the green stickies were all over. Now, I had removed them. I wouldn't go to the second and third person leaving the stickies. I take them off and I make notes, right? So I get to this person and they put a couple of green stickies up and then they put this red sticky up and they look at me and they say, Juan, that picture doesn't belong in this book. It just doesn't belong in this book. It's so different from all the other pictures. And I said, thank you for that feedback. It means a lot to me because it really does, right? If I get that feedback from another 2 or 3 people about that picture, it's coming out. I go to the next person, and this is a true story. I go to the next person, they look at the picture, and you're not going to believe which one gets the green sticker. That picture got the green sticker. Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that picture. At that point, I just threw up my arms and I went, you know what? I don't know if it freaking matters at this point. You know, I'm just going to do the exhibit. I'm going to put my pictures up. If you already have a good eye and you've been doing this for a while, that might be all the criticism you need. Number 3, overcoming equipment issues. Overcoming equipment issues can be an easy topic if you actually have issues. If you have a camera that works part-time, that's not going to be acceptable. If you have a lens that just can't hold its focus, garbage. You know what I do with lenses like that? I take them apart. When I find out that they're not going to be something you can fix for a certain amount of money, right? I mean, if it's ridiculous to fix it, then I'm going to take it apart. And if somebody looks at me and says, it's not worth it, you've had this lens for 15 years, and at this point, it's not worth repairing, then I take it apart. I learn. It's cool to open those things. It takes special tools, and it takes a lot of time. But man, I opened up a lens once, and it was like a 1970s lens, and with a friend, which bought me a special screwdriver set just so I can do this job. Because we got to a point we didn't have screwdrivers small enough and good enough to do this. Because if they're shitty, they fall apart when you're trying to take those little screws off, like the tips bend and get all crappy. So he bought me a Matco tool set for tiny, tiny, tiny little things, and we took apart this lens, and our freaking dining room table was covered with tubes and glass, and I had never seen so much stuff come out of like this little tube. It was amazing, and I have utmost respect for companies that build lenses now. It's amazing. So I said it was a simple thing, but not necessarily an easy thing, right? That's a particular case where your equipment's just failing, so go out and replace it if you can. Take out a loan, as I was told once by a professional photographer when I had my film camera and I approached him. And he said, Juan, it's time to enter the digital realm. This was back in 2003. He said, go mug an old lady and buy yourself a digital camera. And no, I didn't mug an old lady, but I ended up buying a digital camera. It was my first Canon 10D, and I was so happy to have it. And it was so bad compared to everything that's out now, but I did miracles with it. I shot weddings. I was blowing up 24 by 36 on 6 megapixels. You can do wonders. You can do wonders. And you don't need a lot of power. You don't need a lot of horsepower in cameras. You can do wonders if you understand photography. But we're back on crappy equipment. Crappy equipment can be expensive to replace. I know it. But if it's failing, you got to do it. You got to figure out a way. If your equipment is just older and you wish you had something nicer, then it's more here than it is in your hand, right? At this point, you have to accept the fact that you can still do an awesome job with the equipment you have. I mean, really, it comes down to that. Like I said, I had a Canon 10D from 2003. I shot that camera for 6 years. And 5 years maybe? 5-6 years? And I did so much work with that camera. Many of the nudes that I still sell today, that I blow up to, I have some that I blow up to 40 by 60. Can you imagine that? I tweak them a little to do that, right? But still, 40 by 60, man. And I took those with that camera. You can do a lot with the equipment you have, so don't let that bother you. If you do need to replace old equipment that's not working right, like we just mentioned in the previous bullet, think about used equipment, keh.com, right? I'll put a link down below. And, that's a good option. Maybe a friend that's selling stuff, that's switching to another brand. Talk to people, right? And when you join photography clubs and you go out shooting with people, that's the kind of stuff you end up talking to people about. They'll tell you like, oh, I'm going to get rid of my, this particular brand and I'm switching to, hey, I like that brand. Let me look at what you got and maybe I can use a lens, maybe I can use a body as a spare body. Wonderful way to get some extra equipment. Just remember this, right? When we talk about photographers, I throw common names out there because some people don't know the other names. So like Ansel Adams, right? Photographers of the past had equipment that was way inferior to what we shoot today. And that never stopped them from creating masterpieces that made it to museums. You look at a photographer like Ansel Adams and you follow his history. The man only took and I don't know the exact number, but right, he may have taken like 15 pictures a year because it took him forever to set up a picture and get the picture he wanted, sometimes a month waiting for the right cloud setup. And every one of the pictures is in the museum, right? And with equipment that was so inferior compared to what we have today. So we have very little excuses. If we have a camera that's working and a lens that's focusing and it's anything above 10 megapixels, we really don't have excuses, right? It's like the golfer that keeps buying golf equipment because they want to play better, but they don't practice as much and they just want to do it through equipment, or the tennis player that keeps buying the most sophisticated and light and, you know, futuristic racket. That's not going to do it. You know, the equipment helps. I've talked about this before. It helps a good photographer do their job easier. It doesn't really help you get much better pictures. It's not going to make or break your pictures. And if you're crazy about just switching brands, then it's definitely all here. You're going crazy because you want to switch brands, and that's keeping you from being creative, and it's a shame. Don't let it do that to you, right? Continue your creativity. You know, in that case, what you do is you start putting your money aside. Take a piggy bank or whatever, a box, you know. Start putting your money in there every week, whatever you can put, 10, 20 bucks. And just keep doing that. And a year, 2 years are going to go by and you're going to get your new equipment, right? But in the meantime, take what you have and make the best of it. Enjoy it. That's why we talk about living in the present moment, right? Enjoy your equipment, because I guarantee you, it's probably more than enough. And to end this topic, when you do switch equipment and you get that new smells great camera with, you know, the plastic smells awesome and the rubber and the lenses look beautiful, and you go out there, don't expect a huge lift in your photography. It may help a little bit if your camera was really that old, and, you know, don't expect a huge lift. It always goes down to your basics. How good are your basics? How well do you understand them? Number 4, a big one, overcoming a lack of time. This is perhaps the hardest and the easiest problem to solve. If you need more time to either shoot more, you know, practice, or learn more about your current photography, you know, setup and your composition and all that stuff, lighting, and you just can't figure out a way, then we need to go back to basics here too. What are the basics of time? Time management. How are you spending your time? How much time are you watching TV and movies? How much time are you spending playing video games? How much time are you spending on social media? Track it. That's the only way to do it. Track it. Don't let that bother you. Say, you know what? I'm going to face this fact and I want to find out. Wow, I'm spending 2 hours a day on social media. I get home and as I'm eating, I'm, you know, looking through Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and whatever, TikTok and Snapchat. It goes on and on and on, right? And there are new ones coming out. If that's the case, then you need to say, okay, I'm going to limit myself to 30 minutes. I'm going to put a timer. And as soon as that 30 minutes rings, I'm going to go pick up my camera and I'm going to find something to shoot. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to set up, you know, some plants at home. I'm going to set up some things with depth of field, some coins, and just play around with depth of field. I'm going to play around with some lighting, right? Important. We can, most of the time, we can find a little time in our schedule. We just, you know, we get used to the routine and we get bogged down by our routine. That's why I said it's one of the easiest and difficult things to solve, because it really is easy. You sit down, you analyze how you're wasting time, if you're wasting at all. Most of us do. And then you just solve the problem. But here's why it's difficult. Because many times we know what we're doing wrong and we don't want to change it. We're watching that series that goes on for 8 seasons and we're just so involved we don't feel like changing it out. We don't want to replace that with, you know, photography and getting better. It's the way it is. It comes down to priorities. I mean, that's all I can say. Priorities. Can you make 15 minutes a day from your time to pick up your camera and shoot something, or go through the manual one more time? You did it 5 years ago and you really love your camera, but you forgot what some of those things do. Do you have 15 minutes a day to go through that? If the answer is no, you just can't find 15 minutes, maybe it's not that important. I think about many things in my life like that. Some of the things that I want to do take more like 2 or 3 or 4 hours, you know, every couple of days. That's a little harder. That's a little harder to find time for. Sometimes life does take a toll on us and it's hard to find that time. But 15 minutes a day, you know, when I couldn't find 15 minutes a day to practice guitar before I went to bed, I realized it just wasn't that important to me. The guitar's hanging on the wall and I hope to pick it up one day, but I'm not picking it up right now. Number 5. Overcoming fear. As we mentioned, a common fear is the fear of failure. If this is really the only failure you're feeling that's keeping you from moving ahead in your photography, then just realize that you're not alone. If you start by realizing that you're not the only person that's afraid of failing, that's going to allow you to pick up your camera and play a little more and even show people your work because you're not afraid of what they're going to say. You got to accept that to some degree, that it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay for people not to like your work. And, you know, some pictures are going to come out good, some pictures are not. There are quotes out there from famous photographers. I'm going to work with this quote and I'm going to make a video on it one day, but I can't remember who it is. It says, my first 10,000 photographs were my worst. Imagine that. My first 10,000 photographs were my worst. Which is a way of saying it's going to take a little while to take really good pictures, right? So be patient. We all fear failure of something to some degree or other. Everybody, right? So that's what I mean. You're not alone. Don't worry about it too much. Some of us, including me, feel fear of failure in more than one thing, not just photography, right? Your career, raising your kids. I mean, I fear failing in more than one area, right? But I don't let it hold me down and keep me from doing those things. I still got to raise a kid. I still have to do my job at work, and I'm still going to take pictures. If you start with photography as a hobby and you're not worried about making money, then it's less to worry about, right? Then who cares, like I said, what people think? Don't fear failure. Just do it. Now, as you start getting into a business, of course, you're going to be more worried of, you know, failing because you don't want your customers to say, this job sucks. This is not what I paid you for. Yes, now you have to put in the time. You have to learn a little more. You have to practice a little more, right? You have to be consistent. The next fear is a little more complex, and it's that fear of not meeting someone's expectations, right? I know that one. That can be difficult. And it's difficult and it's not. And this is what I mean. Sometimes we are worried about not meeting someone's expectations, but we don't stop to ask ourselves some basic questions like, you know, like if your dad or mom did photography and was a really good or famous photographer, right? And they want you to take it up. And here you are, you've been doing it for 5 years. Some people don't even stop to ask, is this even something I like? Is this even something I enjoy? Is this even something I want to do? Maybe I'm just doing it because they did it and wanted me to do it, right? If that's the case, oh my gosh, it's a weight off your head and off your shoulders. Just put the camera down, sell it, give it away, and you know, move on, right? You don't have to do that. Or keep it as a nice little hobby that you do on the side. And that's it. Just enjoy it when you want to, and for the rest of the time, don't even think about it. And of course, you'll have to just tell them, I don't enjoy this like you did, so please, let's not talk about this anymore. I don't want to do it. Period. And if you actually have a passion for photography, but you still don't want to let them down, either because they were really good or because you're just afraid of letting them down, I want to tell you something, a little secret. You might be harsher on yourself than they are. We do that to ourselves. We in our head, we start thinking they're not going to be happy. They're going to be so disappointed at our progress. They're going to, and in the meantime, they're just happy you're taking photography up and that you're picking up that camera and taking it to the park and shooting pictures. And they're just happy. But we in our head build up this thing because maybe one time they weren't happy about something else, or they made a comment a long time ago and, you know, I got you this expensive camera and you don't even use it. And that was 5 years ago, and we create all this drama in our head that doesn't even exist. So ask yourself if that's the problem, because if it is, you have nothing to worry about. Remember too that you can go into different genres of photography, right? Maybe the person that you're trying not to disappoint was a portrait photographer and you want to go into landscapes. So it doesn't even matter. You're not going to disappoint them because they're in a different field. Or if you want to go into the same field, like I said, don't let it sit here so long, right? You know what you might want to do? Maybe use them as a mode of critique, right? Go do some portraits and sit down with them and say, you know, I really love this. I love what you did, you know, in the past. What do you think of my work? I'd like to use you as my mentor. That'll bring them into your life, and they're going to love that even more. And then you won't be so worried about, you know, upsetting them or not meeting their expectations. The bottom line is, don't be so harsh on yourself. We are sometimes our worst enemy. True. And regarding social media, I think I can tell you honestly, You got to get past that. If you're trying to grow a business and you need the likes and you need the followers, yeah, then you got to put yourself out there. You got to become not just a photographer, but a marketing guru, right? In a way, you got to understand the marketing side of it, and you have to, sell yourself, right? And it takes time. Just remember that, right? Just like I'm on this YouTube channel, it's going to take 2 or 3 years for me to get the followers I need to make the impact I want. I want to teach my photography to many people, but I don't have many followers right now. I'm grateful for the followers I have. I really am. If, by the way, you're liking this, please give me a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Hit the little notification bell so it notifies you that another video is out. And if this topic is something that somebody might like, that please share it with them. But regarding social media, just take it easy, Put yourself out there and be consistent. If you're going to do a video a week like I am, do a video a week. If you're going to put pictures on Instagram every day, then do 1 picture every day. Whatever it is, be consistent. 2 pictures every 2 days, which is the same thing, but now you're releasing little groups of 2, carousels of 2 or 3. Whatever you decide, just be consistent. And over time, you've got to let time happen. That's time heals all wounds, and time makes things better, right? So if you're consistent, give it time. Number 6, location. Here we are, location. Like my location? If you live in a location that you consider dull, boring, blah, 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 try to hook up with other photographers in that area. See what they're doing, right? Meet up with them. Go have a cup of coffee with them. See what they're doing. Talk about what they're shooting. And maybe go shoot something with them. Take a little trip to the local cemetery, to the gardens, to whatever, right? To the local mountain, whatever is cool in your area. And it makes it a lot more fun when you take a friend. Or just another photographer that may become your friend. Like I mentioned before, don't limit yourself. Oh, I'm in this area and there isn't anything cool around here to shoot. Smoke, water, flowers, fruit. There's all kinds of things you can do at home, in your backyard. Get creative. Go on search engines and search up cool photography ideas. I bet you're going to find some really cool stuff that you're going to love. And then you can just try it all. And you can be in your boring little town, if that's what you consider it, and you can do the coolest stuff. If you're just tired of the same old, then of living in the same place, then try it during different times of the day. Maybe you're going out every time and it's the middle of the day. Try going out in the evening with a friend one time and shooting the town in the evening with, gas station lights, the night's dark, right? Local store with the lights on and, cars parked outside. Check out some of that photography. You might find some really cool things to shoot in your town. Number 7 is overcoming a lack of ideas. And as I mentioned before, it could be for any of the previous 6 topics we talked about. And if that's the case, then we have nothing to talk about. We've already discussed them. If it's not any of these things we talked about already, then it's probably something we mentioned at the beginning, which is like life, family life, work, 2 jobs, 3 jobs, marriage, on the brink of divorce, just relationships, tough, friendships gone sour, a death in the family. There's so many things that are external that affect us. And we let them just build up on us, and then they squeeze us down into the ground, and we have no creativity left. And really, the way around that is just to find a little time to meditate, if you can, clear your mind, and find a little time, whether it's on the weekends or a little time every day. If it's on the weekends, then it could be a little more time because, you're not using something every day, like 15, 20 minutes every day or 30. You're leaving it all to the weekend, and maybe you have a couple of hours at that point. And then you just take a little walk, right? And take some pictures. Pictures of the sky, the clouds, buildings, churches, insects, whatever. But it clears up your mind and it starts to bring back your creativity, okay? Remember I told you at the beginning I had a 5-year kind of a stump that killed me. Killed my photography, my creativity. I just wasn't motivated. What I want to tell you now is that it's okay when that happens. If you just sit there one day and accept the fact that it's not coming to you. It's a little different sometimes than writer's block. Writers can get that for a day. If they're writing a book, they can get that for a week. They typically don't get that for a year, right? It happens to them too. But for them, you talk about writer's block, it happens for shorter periods of time. For photographers, I've heard painters tell me the same story, is it happens sometimes for years. And they put away their brushes and they put away all their acrylics and oils, whatever they're using, their canvases, and they just leave it alone. In part, they need a break from it. In part, they want to grow, and what they want to do is take some courses and look at some books and videos and be inspired. Maybe at that time life is hard, right? And they just need a break, and it could be a combination of all of those things, right? Whatever it is, it's okay to take a break. Give yourself that break. After the break I took, I came back stronger. I still had all my photography skills and my knowledge, and I just, hit the pavement running. I couldn't wait to dive in. I got Photoshop at that point because I was now doing digital. I had to learn software. I bought a book for that. I was excited, and that helped me get motivated again, and it helped me get creative. Try not to let those external factors affect you too much. Photography sometimes is the only relaxing thing we have that we can do in the day or on the weekend. So try to keep it inside of you. Try to keep it going. Try to keep that fuel burning, okay? We touched on an 8th topic, and overcoming bad memories. That, if that is something that's really weighing you down and you don't know how to do it, you may have to see, a psychiatrist or a psychologist. That's not bad. It's not the end of the world. Maybe your shrink is going to be a relative, right? That you can sit down with and say, I can't get over this. I can't get over the fact that, such and such used to do photography, and I have all this gear that belonged to them, and I feel guilt. I feel I miss them. And I'm not motivated to do anything with this. What do you think? Talk it out. Sometimes it's important to talk it out. Sometimes you have to do that with a shrink because you have nobody in your family you can rely on or trust to do these things, right? It's okay. It's perfectly okay. The point here is to make a decision after all your talking is done. You want to decide if photography is for you. Maybe you have all this gear and you're trying to start photography because somebody you love used to do it. Maybe it's not even something you like. You're pressuring yourself unnecessarily. And if it is something you like, if it's something that, passions you, then talk to somebody, right? Or do a little meditation, like I said, kind of leave the past behind, right? Thank them for leaving this for you, and make a mental note, say a prayer for them, and tell them you're going to move on. And you're going to use that gear that they so, generously left you, and you're going to make the best of it. I don't want to turn this into a religious thing because some people are, some people aren't. It's not about that. It's about whatever makes you feel good. Whatever it is, come to terms with it and take up photography. It's a beautiful, beautiful hobby, and it'll be with you forever. So we are here at the conclusion of the video. We have discussed all of the 8 barriers to creativity and maybe how to overcome some of them. I hope this video was helpful, especially if you're struggling in one of these areas. Again, if you liked the video, please give me a like down here, and please subscribe down here if you're not already. Hit the little notification bell when you subscribe, because that will keep the videos coming into your apparatus, whether it's your phone or your computer, and letting you know that they're there so you can watch them. Share this, please, with somebody. Comment. Please comment. I need you to comment. Let me know if this was helpful, if there was something I missed, if there's something that touched you and something that you relate with, right? That kind of, or something you want to do from what we talked about. Whatever it is. Continue to take care of yourselves. You are still my family, whether it's a YouTube family, I don't care. You're still my family. I love you all from the bottom of my heart, as always. Ciao for now.